Hello and welcome back to another NWCL Beyond the Boundary. And today I'm joined by NWCL lead journalist Graham Hardcastle. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not so bad. Are you? How's things?
I'm good. I'm good, thank you. Going well. So obviously you've done a Beyond the Boundary a few years ago with Boothie. But for those who don't know you, can you yourself in your role with the North West Cricket League?
Yeah, I've been lead journalist since the kind of start. What are we 3 years into it now? So yeah, I've I've been in journalism for the last 20 years. My first, the majority of my work comes through the county circuit. I'm club journalist at Yorkshire. I do some freelance stuff elsewhere as well, at Lancashire. Do some work for the ECB, etc., etc. Um, so yeah, I mean the league is. I used to play in the Bolton League, and I used to play in the Ribblesdale League as well. So that's the kind of link. So yeah, there we are.
So start at the beginning. Can you tell us what inspired you to get into journalism?
Um, well, I wasn't very good at playing. That was basically the the long and short of it. I've always been an absolute cricket nut. Um, so once it became plainly obvious that I was never going to get anywhere in the game, which was obvious from a fairly early time, then I wanted to do something from a work point of view that would involve cricket, would involve sport. So yeah, this was something that I pursued when I got to university straight stage.
Yeah. So journalism has changed massively from when you started to how it is today. When you first got into journalism, was anything that kind of spiked out to you what you really enjoyed about it?
Well, I've always done. I mean, I guess it's a little bit of a kind of old-fashioned thing now, the way that journalism has changed so much, as you say. But I've always enjoyed the kind of print element to it. That has been the main kind of forte of mine, if you will. So, uh, writing for newspapers, writing for online publications as it is now. So yeah, that was the one thing that I kind of massively enjoyed. I've done various bits of other things, like obviously you have to move with the times, don't you? So the social media element of it. I've done bits of video, bits of radio, um, commentary. I've always actually really enjoyed the summarizing element for radio commentary. Doing the kind of the second or third voice kind of assessment of games. I have really enjoyed that. Bits and bobs of things I've done with Lancashire and Yorkshire as well. So yeah, that's something. But yeah, the print element of it is the kind of main thing for me, really.
Yeah. And obviously, the NWCL in its third year now. What made you want to be involved in North West Cricket League? Compared, obviously, you got mostly with Yorkshire and stuff like that. What made you want to go into league cricket?
Well, a couple of reasons. One being the fact that I've always liked, as a freelance, I've always liked to try and get variety in what I do. So the majority of my stuff, as I say, county cricket in the professional game. Um, so so from that point of view, it was kind of quite good for me to kind of dip into local league cricket. From the personal side of things, I've had links with both leagues. I started out at Bradshaw. That was where I played as a junior. My dad played for the majority of his career. He played at Falmouth as well. Scored a lot of runs. Um, and then when I left Bradshaw, I went to play at Brindskull, which was where I actually grew up. That was our family home, right from day dot for me. And yeah, so it's a it's a kind of league and leagues as it was back then that meant a lot to me. You know, the likes of Brindle as a club means a lot to me. Bradshaw as well. Same, my old man played at Farnworth as well. So yeah, um, that's where we're at really.
Mm. And what made you involvement in the North West Cricket League? Is there anything you enjoyed or any challenges that you encountered?
Well, I mean, I'm enjoying the kind of competitiveness of it. I don't see too many games. Due to other commitments. But I've seen um, probably 10 games maybe over a couple of years, 3 years. And the one thing that is really evident is how much the competitive edge of it has increased. I think it's fair to say that the Bolton teams probably hit the ground running quicker than the Ribblesdale League teams did. But you look now, and Reed are a prime example, aren't they? Top of the Premiership, Hamer Cup champions. The likes of Padiham have done very well. Salisbury are going extremely well in the Lancs knockout. So that kind of competitiveness does seem to have kind of eased out, or leveled out, should I say? That's probably a better way of saying it.
Mm. Obviously, with the journalism side of things, obviously when you're doing Yorkshire, it's very different. In so if you interview, I don't know, Joe Root, or you interview, I don't know, Conor Lord for Tongue, you get two very. One side is quite media trained, another side is not. So you probably get two different answers. In terms of your journalism side, is there any challenges for that you found pretty different to what you're used to?
Well, it's better when they're not media trained. I say
Pardon?
that. It's
Yeah.
better when they're not media trained. Because um, I guess to a certain degree, media training is all about trying to avoid saying too much. So, from a journalistic point of view, um, you want people to the biggest piece of advice I would give um, to players and coaches would be to be to be wary. Yes, there are pitfalls. Clearly, there are things you don't want to be talking about, but you want to be yourself. Do you know what I mean? You want that character to come across, and there are plenty of county cricketers, professional cricketers who aren't themselves. You will interview them and they're one person, and then you'll speak to them off camera or um, away from an interview setting, and they're a completely different person. So yeah, I mean, there are advantages of media training. Don't get me wrong, um, but there has to be a balance struck between trying to avoid the pitfalls whilst also trying to maintain that character that that brings stories to life at the end of the day.
Obviously, when you interview a county player, it's generally they would have something in the contract. I know some people might be more inclined to do it than others. And I know from doing this, you ask some people and they're not too keen, and others are really keen to go on because they've not had that opportunity before. You get the experience when you're interviewing certain captains and even certain players. You get that thing where some people are really want to come on and show themselves off, not just show themselves off, but show their club off because the club hasn't got the attention that it may have should have had in the last few years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody's different, aren't they? There are some people more comfortable in doing things like that than others. But at the end of the day, this is people's opportunity to tell their story in a positive light. But the last thing I'd want to do is to be telling a kind of bad story in a sense. I always try to. It's not always possible, but I always try in a season to get round everybody. If people don't want their story told, then that's fine. I'll steer clear of them. Um, and the other thing I will always try and do, where possible, is speak to somebody after a win. because it's a positive tale, and um, and that's where being a kind of journalist for a league or a club, at the end of the day, you're more likely to try and tell the positive tale, aren't you? So yeah, there are things that will happen um, that naturally um, you have to kind of tell a story that's not ideal if a team's bottom of the league, for example, or what have you. But generally speaking, you try and tell the positive tale.
Yeah. And before you mentioned you've not been to a lot of games with Northwest really, but you mentioned the competitivity of it. And then your experience from looking at other local leagues in the Lancashire area, what do you think that makes the league unique compared to them leagues from what you've seen?
Um, I, it's a difficult one to say unique. I don't know because I could say one thing that's unique, and others around the county will say, well, hang on a minute, we do that as well, or that's an element of our league that. But I do like the variety that that has kind of been struck within this league. You've got two leagues that have come together, completely different environments, and it seems like actually there's quite a lot of camaraderie between the clubs and the players. Whilst everybody is competitive, I think people are quite enjoying the success of other clubs. Especially when I've found that you talk to some Ribblesdale League clubs, for example, or old Ribblesdale League clubs, and they're enjoying the success of Reed at the moment. And it's perhaps likewise on the Bolton side of things. So yeah, I think that kind of element of variety within the one league is quite a good thing.
Yeah. Because I mean, we all love seeing clubs be successful, whether it's your own club or club you like, whatever. But like for me, seeing Reed do so well, and I'm friends with a lot of them there, and their club is run very successfully, not just for the first team, first, second, third, junior cricket, the whole the whole ground. It's very good to see, and it's nice to see clubs who actually put money into elsewhere in the club has really turned into success. You don't want one team. I'll go back in the Ribbles. I obviously weren't watching the Ribblesdale League. Settle won it, what, 3, 4 years on the trot. I'm sure the Ribblesdale team wouldn't have liked that. Seeing now the league is so competitive, not just in the Premiership and the Championship as well. We're what, past the halfway point. We don't know who's going to win the league. So I bet you that's really good to see for them clubs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, talking about the kind of variety. I mean, naturally you'll look at the club or leagues like the GMCL and the Lancashire League, and they do have that variety as well because they're an amalgamation of different leagues and what have you. Um, the Lancashire League has got a few clubs like Greenmount going into it, hasn't it? Who haven't been there before. But yeah, I think the Northwest Cricket League certainly has a lot going for it. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
Yeah. And obviously, we mentioned how journalism has changed. But looking at journalism in the coming years and even further afield, how do you see journalism evolving to meet the demands of the younger readers coming through who might, you mentioned before, who might not necessarily like reading newspapers the old fashioned style?
Well, the online presence is massive. There's no doubt about that. How will it change going forward? It's difficult to say. I guess people want their news quicker, don't they? It's perhaps become shorter and sharper in many senses. The one thing that I would still bang the drum for, however, is the written word. I still think there is a huge desire for people um, to read copy, whether that's in papers, whether that's online. I think there is still a huge desire for that. I'm biased because that's my kind of primary skill, um, but the fact that I've managed to maintain a kind of freelance business for 20 years on the back of that is an indication of it being still popular.
And we publish in the Bulletin News and the Lancashire Telegraph on as well as the website. And it's obviously we might not be going out and buying newspapers, but being able to copy that link onto the social media and people can actually read the article there, which is obviously really good to see. And you mentioned before about wanting the news quicker. Podcasts have become obviously we're doing one here. The podcasts become very wanted in the last few years, and I feel like every single person doing a podcast now. This podcast is half an hour long. If this was a transcript, it might only take you 10, 15 minutes to read. So sometimes what we news quicker, sometimes reading is arguably is a better option in a way.
Yeah, I mean, the the breadth of opportunities that are provided for people to get their media is brilliant. We're in a better place now from a media point of view because of the different options available. Yes, I would like to see print journalism in a better place than it is. Absolutely, 100%. But the podcast element, to a certain degree, the social media. I mean, I hate the kind of vitriol that can be produced on the likes of X and what have you. But it does have its advantages for sport, not just cricket, for sport. You can go online and find scores very quickly. So yeah, I think it's in a pretty decent place.
Yeah. And one thing I want to ask you, obviously, a big part of your role is looking at the results and obviously some convictions on play cricket. How have you felt about experiences going through play cricket we all know it's not the best sort of website to go on a Saturday night after all the games have done. But how have you felt doing that in the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, there has been a few challenges here and there. There are scorecards that are incomplete and all that kind of stuff. And I've messaged you, haven't I, plenty of times and saying, have you seen? I don't know, for example, just picking a club at random. Have you seen Eagles results go up or Salisbury's results? That kind of scorecard's not complete, etc., etc. Generally speaking, though, that it's pretty decent. They don't take too long to get sorted. I do think that clubs, and this isn't just an NWCL thing. This is clubs up and down the country. I do think there could be better or could be more done to provide scores on social media. It surprises me that there isn't as much of a desire to keep people updated with scores on social media. I'm not saying, ball by ball or anything like that, but you will go through plenty of Twitter feeds, and that day's results never appear, which surprises me a little bit.
Yeah, I think the next question kind of touches on that. And what do you think cricket leagues and cricket clubs as well should be doing to enhance their digital presence?
That really, yeah, that's a simple one. That all Saturday results should be available online. If you've got an X account or Instagram or whatever it may be, Facebook, that all Saturday results should be online and available that night.
Yeah,
I think
that's what we always try to do in the league. Get over. Obviously, it does, like you've said, it does take a bit of a while to get through. You might get it through by morning. So what we try to do is 7 a.m. on the Sunday morning. We'll put all the results from all the Saturday. So obviously all the first team game and the second team game, 7 a.m. Sunday morning. Because I know on a Saturday evening, obviously that's when you all do your journalism stuff. If you're drinking, if you're going out, it's probably not the best time from a social media standpoint in terms of views and engagement to put it on them. So we always put it Sunday morning. try to get people waking up, having a coffee, lemon tea, whatever, and then they can read results straight away in a more efficient format. So in design format as well. Obviously, you can look at play cricket if they're really desired. But like you said, you see on clubs, and I think in the last few years, especially in the last 12 months, since
There's
we've kind
definitely
of
been an
pushed,
improvement.
definitely, yeah. And
Yeah,
I think in play cricket, you can have over by over kind of um, updates on Twitter. I don't think that's the way forward because it just crams out a whole Twitter feed full of
absolutely.
80 overs. But I think we spoke before on a Saturday evening, clubs should have um, your results on maybe who top performer from batting and bowling, and that's it. It takes what 90 seconds to do, and then you keep everyone updated. Then and for that scorecard which hasn't come through, at least you know what's happened there.
Yeah, because there will be a stage where during at the latter stages of a season, for example, you might get a glitch in play cricket, and it's a title decider, and results are depending on what's going on elsewhere. And it would be great for people to know, almost instantly as a bit of a fallback for issues with play cricket to know what the situation is at other games.
Yeah. And is anything that obviously you mentioned results there, is anything you've seen from other clubs or other leagues that you think should be more nationwide, what more clubs should be doing through whether it's social media, through a lot of innovation? So obviously podcast is done for a few years. Is anything new coming up that you think many clubs should be taking into account and doing those for clubs, whether it's behind the scenes content or anything like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's difficult to say really. That I just think that the kind of simple things, the simple things are the ones that matter the most in a sense. The obvious, the scores and what have you. That's the most important information. And I guess really the way that kind of journalism has evolved, I guess the onus is more on clubs and leagues to tell their own story. So in whatever way you feel that's that's the best way, whether it's social media, your website, Instagram, or what have you, kind of get your message out there, and that's the best way. Um, you know, don't rely on other people. Almost try and get your story out there yourself.
Yeah, and even like I've seen TikTok videos where on a Saturday or Sunday you get a microphone going to each player, how many runs you're gonna get, and then you get them coming off. Stuff like that brings you can't see that anywhere else. This podcast you can't unless you physically listen or watch this podcast, you can't find this information anywhere else unless it's come through word of mouth. And that's the key thing, getting your voice out there. You see, I look at Lower House, for example, and I don't know which league we're in, but they've done really well on social media for doing a lot of stuff, and especially with every club now, a lot of clubs are having live streaming at the grounds. And I've seen on Frogbox, especially, you can get kind of if one of your players get a century, you can clip up the highlights and then put that in your social media. But also, I know it's not the most important thing in the world to have on, but it brings a new element to it, and it also keeps it
Well,
active as well.
it brings that human element to life, doesn't it? There are so many amazing stories that happen on a Saturday afternoon up and down the land that they need telling. Whether it's dads and lads playing together, people taking their thousandth wicket, you know, hundred set, fivers, tenfers, whatever it may be. There are so many amazing stories that tell them. That's the that will only increase the interest around your club. It will, it may make more people want to come and watch, want to come and play, even things like that. So yeah.
Yeah. So going back to involvement with the Northwest Cricket League, I think we've touched on this in the last 20 minutes. So obviously you do a feature match per week and around the fall matches with a few other things such as Hammer Cup previews, T20, stuff like that. What's your process for getting these completed in good time? Because the game is finished on Saturday evening. I normally get them on a Sunday afternoon usually.
Yeah, well, I usually try and speak to a captain on a Saturday night. That's the that's the kind of first base really, and then it's just about writing up from there. It's fairly straightforward. It'll take me sometimes it'll take me Saturday nights. I can get it all done. Generally speaking, I'll kind of polish it off Sunday morning before moving on to a county game. So yeah, I mean, there's some Saturday nights as well. I'm kind of juggling um, covering county games and what have you. But yeah, I like to try and get the majority of it done by kind of like 10 o'clock Sunday morning, really.
Yeah. Obviously, when you interview a captain, it's probably not going to be the most structured interview at all times. Obviously, if they're coming back or they're just having a drink, whatever. Do you kind of make notes as you're going along, or do you record the interview and then write up afterwards? How do you kind of process for doing that?
Yeah, I just kind of record it, um, and it doesn't go anywhere apart from me just listening back to it just to make sure I don't misquote anybody. Um, it's 5 or 10 minutes of a call. That'll be all it takes really, just to see how the game's gone, how the season's going more generally, who's been successful, who's playing well, those kind of things. So yeah, it's a fairly straightforward process.
Yeah. And is that something you've enjoyed? You've only been to about 10 games mentioned before. You can kind of get more deeply rooted into the league, into the club when you actually speak to a captain, whatever, because you can kind of speak to them and say, like you said before, talk about their stories. That's something you really enjoyed. Sort of speak to each club and to learn more about it.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, yes, I've played for Bristol. I've played in the Bolton League as a junior, but there's so much stuff I don't know about other clubs and players and things like that. So yeah, it's been great to kind of widen that knowledge as well. And find out about different players and their successes. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So finally, I'm going to end with some quick fire questions. So the first one is your favourite cricketing memory.
Favorite cricketing memory? Well, a couple combine them into one. Watching Lancashire win the championship in 2011 and watching Yorkshire go back to back in 14 and 15. To cover those seasons were amazing.
Hmm. And the most entertaining place interview.
There's been a few. I've been very lucky. The likes of Andrew Simons, Stuart Law, um, Andrew Gale has been very good at Yorkshire. Jason Gillespie, people like that. Yeah, I've been very lucky with Mal Loy was another one, another good one at Lancs. Um, yeah, I've been very lucky.
Hmm. And one under the radar county player who you think will be playing for England in 5 years' time.
Um, well, he has played for England already. I think there will be a far more prominent role, however, and that's Rayan Ahmed at Leicestershire.
Yeah.
I think we've seen snippets of him, but I think he's going to be an absolute superstar. He's really come on with the bat this year, incredibly so. So fingers crossed his bowling can keep developing, and he just seems the kind of cricketer that's absolutely perfect for that England environment.
Hmm. And the best match that you've covered.
Best match. I covered the Boxing Day Test in 2006-07 when England were down there and Warne took, was it his 700th Test wicket? I think it was that. Bowling Andrew Strauss.
Hmm. And your favourite cricketing legend.
Favorite cricketing legend. Um, oh God, that's a good one. Um, I always enjoyed the one of the best players I've ever covered was Andrew Simons. He had a half a season at Lancashire in my first year covering county cricket, actually in 2005, and everything he touched turned to gold. And it was he was absolutely sensational that season. So yeah, I've always had a real kind of soft spot for watching him, and obviously it's so sad that what happened a couple of years ago. Um, you can't go too much further past Shane Warne as well. I mean, he was just a magician, wasn't he? Um, so yeah, those two in a side would be an absolute dream to watch.
And was anyone when you've obviously when you're playing cricket as a junior, was anyone who you looked up to who you wanted to be as a kid?
Um, well, I didn't. I never saw my dad play, which I would have loved to because he's got such a good reputation around the Bolton League, and I would have been um, kind of 2 or 3 years old and um, not really kind of understanding how good he was really. So I'd have quite liked to have seen him play.
Mm. You've been active in cricket, and this could be either amateur cricket or professional cricket, or you can give one of each.
Just say that again.
So your biggest pet peeve in cricket, you can give one for amateur or professional.
Overrates in professional cricket. Um, they need to they need to be quicker. There's absolutely no doubt about that. That for the paying public who are paying, well, it's massive money now, isn't it, for international and test match tickets, and they're not getting the product that they should be getting. So yeah, absolutely overrates. Um, aside from when a county plays two spinners and whips through their overs, county games don't finish at 6 o'clock.
Mm.
They're always finishing at 6:30, quarter to 7. So yeah, um, that would be one thing I would want to see improved.
Do you think there's any way to improve that? Or anything suggestions you would say?
Um, Points deductions, some more severe points deductions, perhaps. Um, Runs, penalties, things like that.
Mm. Okay.
Because seemingly the kind of, I know that in county cricket there's a point per over that you're behind, but generally speaking, it's only one or two, so that's not a massive that's not a massive penalty. Um, but maybe if you started penalising teams 5 points, um, it would hit home harder. But I do think the one thing I would say is I do think the bigger problem is in international cricket,
Mm.
without doubt. I think in county cricket it's only a minor problem, but I think it's a major problem in international cricket. And I suppose with and I know there's the World Test Championship and what have you, but the points penalties for that aren't really that severe. I think you've probably got to be penalising teams' runs to really kind of hit home.
Yeah. I know we're
That wasn't
quite a
very
few.
quick fire, was it, that one?
I know. Um, I know there's still a few months left, but what's your predictions for the upcoming Ashes in Australia?
um, Heart England, head Australia. Heart England, head Australia.
Yeah.
I just think Australia in their own conditions will probably just have too much with that bowling attack.
And do you see the team staying pretty similar to what it has been in the last 12 months, or do you see a player coming through between now and then?
From the England side of things,
Yeah.
um, Well, I mean, the most intriguing one will be to see how Jofra Archer pulls up. He is really going to be the X factor bowler for them if he can get back to how he was 4 years ago. If he does that, England have got a real chance. But I'm not 100% sure quite how realistic a prospect that is, given the amount of red ball cricket that he's missed. And he's only played one game, hasn't he, in the lead up to the Lord's Test.
Yeah.
So
And
so yeah.
and if you think if he is fit to play in the Ashes, would you play? Obviously, conditions dependent, but would you be playing Mark Wood and Jofra Archer in the same 11?
Potentially, you know, you're very unlikely to get the same team in, or the same bowling attack in probably three tests, aren't you? Really, the way that workloads are managed these days. Um, so so yeah, I don't see why not. I can't see it happening um, for many more than one or two tests. But yeah, why not give it a go?
Yeah. So I think that's all the questions I have. Is there anything that you'd like to add before we finish?
No, no. Good luck to all the teams for the rest of the season. I mean, it's built up to be a cracking finish, isn't it? Reed and found the social circle going toe to toe at the moment. So yeah, it'll be fascinating to see how that battle plays out.
Yeah. So we've got T20 quarterfinals this week, and finals day will be next Sunday or the Sunday after if Salisbury beat Reed. Obviously, we've got Hamer Cup in August as well. So yeah, hopefully, the two cup competitions, the league. Hopefully, we've got a good couple of months left in us. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for coming on, and
No
no doubt
problem.
I will speak to you soon.
Cool. Take care.
You too. Thank you.